What'd I leave you with? Ah, that's right. I gave you a homework assignment, didn't I? Let's see. I did actually ask you to find it, didn't I? Specific question? I just want to reward if you guys actually did it. I'll give you some extra credit points if you did it. I did ask you legitimately to do it, didn't I?
I think so.
I think I did. Anybody do it? Well, that's okay. Then nobody gets extra credit. It doesn't matter. But I was thinking, I guess I could check the tape here, but I thought I said calculate the gains from trade.
How many points are we talking about here?
Oh, wow. One. Just something to throw a bone, your way for doing it. So if I could read your writing, I'd be doing good. Okay. Conceptually, it looks good. Like I said, I made up these numbers, so, but yeah. Anybody else give it a try? Give it a whirl? We'll see if pulled it out right. I mean, you definitely had the right concept, John. So what did I ask for? The gains from trade in terms of fruit. All right. And who had the comparative advantage in fruit? What's that, Dylan? Okay. So if you don't know the answer to that question, how do you know the answer to the question? Like if you have to rebuild it. Lowest opportunity cost. Okay, so who had the lowest opportunity cost of fruit? U.S. All right, what was it? Third. Okay. So. So let's get down the details of the case here. So we've got, what are we doing again? I've been doing, I think I told you guys this. I'm doing it in macro, spatial, and this one, and I'm doing a different one for each one. So you guys are really going to have to help me here. I'm not kidding. I'm trying to figure out what we're doing. So what were the endpoints here? And I made this one up because I didn't even have it in my notes.
180.
Up here?
Yeah.
And what were we measuring?
We were measuring
Computers and fruit. And so what was our endpoint here? 60. All right. So maybe something that looks like that. And then over here, and this was USA. And this was Jakarta. And we had fruit star, computer star, endpoint 525, and what was the other one? 75? 75? Okay. So something that looks like this. All right. Then we have all of these production possibilities, but one of the key things is identifying where we started. And so I gave you that. What do we call that? The starting place. Kind of had a weird word. Yeah. Autarky. So the autarkic point is what they, as the lingo goes. What did we have for the United States? 20. And how much? No, what was this number here? 120. Okay. And 50. And 175. Okay. All right. So those are points on the production possibilities frontier. How did you know that? How do you know? I mean, it's easy for me to draw a picture and put the dot on there, but how do you know that that's on that line? That's on that function? Okay, so constant slope. So constant productivity, right? So productivity is constant at all production levels. So there's actually constant returns to scale. And we know that we could be here. We know that we could be here. And since it's a constant rate of exchange, so to speak, on the productivity scale, the slope of this line, rise over run, down 180 over 60 is -3. So the production possibilities frontier had a slope of -3. And what is the slope of the line always equal to?
Opportunity cost of whatever is measured on the horizontal.
Excellent. So we got fruit being measured on the horizontal axis. So the cost of a fruit in the United States is 3 computers. Okay? And so down 3, down 60 over 20 gives us a point along the slope. Same thing going over there. So we call this point A and point A star as our starting place. So what was this slope equal to? 7? Is that right? -7? All right. So what are the gains from trade in terms of, what did I ask you for? Did I say for both, or did I say a thing? Or did you calculate them multiple ways? Did anybody write down? I mean, I can start fresh, but I'd rather continue on with your notes if I actually...
In terms of fruit.
In terms of fruit, okay. So, what are the gains in terms of fruit? What else do we need to calculate the gains from trade? What are some other variables that are missing?
The world price.
The world price, right? So we got to know what we're trading in. What was the United States specializing in? Fruit. So they're going to move production to point B and produce all fruit and no computers. Jakarta has a comparative advantage in computers, so they're going to produce all computers and no fruit. So their production points change to those, which are of course possible. And then they're going to trade at the world price. And what did we say for the world price? 4 computers for every fruit. Is the world price of, would you say that's the price of a computer or price of a fruit? Fruit, right? So 4 computers equals 1 fruit. World price of fruit equals 4. We're also going to call that the terms of trade. And your textbook uses the definition TT, or the abbreviation TT. So we'll kind of use those interchangeably. Terms of trade or the world price. This one gives you a little bit more detail. You need to think of things in prices, but either way. How did we get the 4? Okay, so from the model standpoint, it was an assumption, right? So it's just this is what it is. But we did derive what the possibilities were, what the highest price that would make sense and the lowest price, the range. And what was that range? 3 to 7. So if we're in Jakarta, they can trade off at 7 for 1. So if they can trade off for 6 for 1, it's a deal for them, right? If they can trade off at 5 for 1, it's a deal for them. So we established the range of possible prices, and then we just assume that. All right. So gains from trade. Now we have everything in place, I think. How do we calculate the gains from trade? What would be a way to do it? I guess I'll let John off the hooks, and I'll get some of the other people to chime in. So if somebody came up to you and posed the question, what is the benefits of trade? I don't get trade. It takes away U.S. jobs, blah, 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 blah. We're coming up with a way show that both parties are better off. So we're going to first show one country, then show the other, and kind of prove that they're both better off from trade. That's pretty exciting. See the expression on my face. How excited. Yes. The miracle of the market. So we started here, no trade. Here's our anti-trade people, right? We just take the status quo and we're right here. How would you go about calculating the gains from trade? Okay. All right. So conceptually, tell me what you're doing. To show the gains from trade, what are you doing? I think you're on the right track.
Well, they specialize in fruit. So
okay.
They want to get back to where they originally wanted to be with the fruit, back to the 20.
Okay, now do we want to go back to the 20 or do we want to go back to the 120 in this case?
Oh, we're going to get higher than 120, right?
If we put it in terms of computers. So what is the question asking for? Fruit. So yeah, I want you to kind of visualize graphically what we're doing. We're going to start to give up our fruit, and how far should we go? How much computers should we buy to show the gains from trade in terms of fruit? 120. Why?
So you can see how much more fruit you have.
Yeah. So now it's easy. We kind of made a common denominator, which when we think about gains from trade in the real world, what's our common denominator? If you're thinking about the gains, how much you gained? Money. Money's our common denominator. So now what we've learned hopefully in some of our principles classes is that money means nothing, because if the world comes to an end, you've got pieces of paper that do nothing for you, right? Money itself gives you no intrinsic value, other than it might help start a fire or keep you warm when the rest of the world's coming to an end. So the gains here are shown in terms of their real purchasing power, in terms of the goods that the money buys. The economic engine here is between fruits and computers, things that we care about. These are the things that enter our utility function. Right? These are the things that make the economy work. Money just helps facilitate that exchange. So we're sticking in real goods, and we want to get to this point. I might not be drawing this perfectly, but I know that it's going to be outside here, because if I give up one fruit, how many computers do I get? If I give up just one fruit, how many computers do I get? 4. And 1, 2, 3, because the slope is 3, 4. Right? I'm outside the production possibilities frontier. And so this line runs something like this, and it now shows the consumption possibilities. And its slope is what? -4, which is the terms of trade. So that's our trade line. You can think of it being kind of the trade line. And the thing that's exciting is that now the United States can consume outside what they could produce. They're made better off. So this is really showing people that how you can be better off. I'm asking for the gains expressed in terms of fruit. So, what are the gains from trade? 10 fruit. How'd you get that? Okay. So, for USA, they are going to buy 120 fruit to get back to autarkic point with computers to get back to their starting place. Yes, sorry, 120 computers. So they're going to buy 120 computers. And what are they going to pay with?
Fruit.
They're going to pay with fruit. They're going to pay with 120 computers times the price of their product that they're selling here. So there's a couple different ways to think about this. They're going to pay, maybe we should do this, think of it a little bit differently. They're going to pay with fruit. And it costs them 120 computers runs how much per computer? 1/4 of a fruit per computer, right, is the world price. For computers per fruit is also expressed as 1/4 of a fruit per computer. The C's cancel. 120 divided by 4 equals 30 fruit. All right. So are the gains from trade 30? No, we're not done yet. So now we have found this number is 30? Yeah? Okay, so we paid 30, happens to be half of that is 30, right? So we actually gave up 30 fruit and we happen to be left over with 30. That was just coincidence, just so you know that that didn't match up, right? So we gave up 30 fruit, we're left with 30, we buy 120, so there's our point C. And so then what's the gain from trade? 10, just 10. So the gain is equal to the 30 we're left with minus the 20 we started with is 10 fruit. And technically, were we in thousands for this? Yeah. So remember, we're in thousands. So this is 10,000 fruit. What about Jakarta? So Jakarta, let's do the same exercise with them. It's slightly different because they have all computers. So what are they going to do? Good. They're going to sell computers. How many? This one? I can't fit. Oh. To get to 175, right? Right? So we're going to dump computers to get to 175 because that's what we had before trade. So we're going to dump that many computers. How many computers is that? 350. That looks about right. So we're going to get rid of 350. And how many fruit is that going to buy us? Okay, 350 divided by 4, what do we get? 87.5. So we're going to, for Jakarta, I'll just do a little bit shorthand this time. We're going to sell 350 computers at a price of 1/4 of a fruit per computer, gets us 87.5 fruit. So 87.5 is apparently right there. We could have been anywhere along here. Our consumption possibilities for Jakarta look something like that. And what's the slope of the consumption possibilities frontier?
4.
-4. Same as it was over here. That is the world price, so that doesn't change. So if we were really drawing this carefully, you know, the slopes, if everything was measured out nicely, the slopes of the two red lines would be the same. Max?
So essentially, we took both of their trading scenarios and equilibrated them together so that we could compare them. You know what I'm saying? And make the slopes the same.
I just want to be careful. We
Didn't they close?
didn't make their slopes are still the same. They're different. So their production possibility slopes are different. Then we found a price in the middle. So we didn't really we didn't really equilibrate them. I guess is the only problem we had.
World price, so we could compare the goods, though, right?
Yes, we did have to do that.
Production possibilities.
Yep. We had to figure out what that price is, and we just assume that for the model. Okay. So gain from trade is
12.5. No.
from the 50, right? We started with 50. Gains from trade in terms of fruit. So we have 27.5 more fruit. So sell that, we get to 87. Therefore, the gain from trade is equal to 87.5 minus the 50 that we started with, gives us 27.5 fruit. So what if the world price of fruit changed to 5 from 4? What's the implications of that?
Well, you have to divide the 350 divided by a bigger number would be 7.
Okay, so it would be less here and less around the world, less here too? Okay, so I wanted to point that out, that once you move a price, then somebody gets hurt and somebody gets helped, right? So who gets helped with the price change from 4 to 5, the US or Jakarta? The US. Now you'll see that, brought the golf club today, right here. If we go from a slope of 4 to a slope of 5, does this get steeper or flatter? Steeper, and so you can see that we'd have more gain. Slope from 4 to 5, does this get steeper or flatter? Steeper. Alright, so it's still steeper, down 5 over 1. So there's down 4 over 1, down 5 over 1. So the gain from trade would be reduced. So that's part of the rub with international trade. We started off the story in autarky. Both countries were made better off, right, when we engaged in trade. But when there's a price change, one country could potentially, in this model anyway, one country could be made worse off at the other's expense, because you're back to the tug of war. So a lot of times it depends on what the status quo was. Are you starting from no trade, or are you starting from a trade point? Now, within the country, if we have computer producers and fruit producers, which we do in each country, when we engage in trade, who gets hurt in Jakarta? The fruit producers, the local domestic fruit producers get hurt, right? So when we open up for trade, the local fruit producers get hurt. and we go all the way up to computers. So once we fully specialize, now we're left with all computers, and a change in the terms of trade will for sure worsen or help the production of the only good we're doing. In this particular model, which is a bit limiting, this Ricardian trade model. We're going to add on to that a little bit later. Okay. So now that we hopefully are all comfortable, why don't you all, if you need to talk to your neighbor or me when you're doing it, show the gains from trade in terms of computers for each country. So graphically, again, you're just going up to point E instead of C. You're not moving this way, you're moving this way. And same thing here, you're moving up to a point D star instead of C.
We're assuming the price is staying the same?
The world price stays at 4, yeah. We won't change
So
that.
our computer is 1/4, correct?
1/4 of a food, yep, for a computer. So the world price stays the same. All we're going to do is show the gains from trade in terms of the other good rather than food. How did you do on yours, by the way? Did you do that?
Yeah, I
Well,
got all those right, except I had that started at 30 because I could read my girls.
Oh.
Change a couple.
Well, see, it's just not me then. All right. How you doing? You got the mechanics of it down, or you got any questions? How about you, Gene?
Doing okay.
Looks like you've mastered the two-finger writing, okay?
So it'd be multiplying, right?
You're kind of changing where you want to get to. So nothing's changed with comparative advantage. Both the B and the B star are still the same, but we're just going to move, to a different spot to show the gains.
So we have to calculate these new numbers?
Right. So we're not going to do those anymore. We're doing the other.
Got it.
Because here the gain in terms of fruit was this horizontal distance, but now you're looking for this vertical distance. Because you're gonna keep selling fruit until you get back to the old level of fruit, and then you're gonna see how many more computers you got.
And how do we get this number again? We divided by the comparative advantage.
That was our starting place.
3, yeah. So 60 divided by 3 is 20.
Yeah, but you don't really have much new to calculate there because you're only moving along.
Oh, this is the old place?
This all stays the same. The PPF stays the same.
And the autarky point stays the same?
And the autarky stays the same.
Okay.
All we're changing is where we're going along the consumption possibilities.
Okay, so I'd stay with 180 then.
Yep. Next time, draw a bigger graph. It's kind of helpful. You're getting kind of tight. You got it down, the mechanics?
Yeah, basically.
Taylor?
That's not working out right.
Yeah, you don't, the graph it just kind of is helpful if you, when it's bigger, then you got more room for erasing and stuff. That's it.
I have the numbers.
Don't expect it to be totally good. These are your numbers you got? Okay. I'm not even sure. I haven't calculated it myself.
Right. Right.
So Taylor, what was your gain for the United States? 40,000. John, what did you have for the United States? 40,000. Okay, we got two people with 40s. I haven't calculated it myself, so. Questions, or you got it? You just need to calculate it. Okay, that's fine. Okay, we can work through it together. I just wanted you guys to start to noodle it. So, gains for the United States. Here's the steps.
Okay, so this one would be 25
Well, if you're deep in thought, I'll just go on. You can jump in whenever you want. So we start with 120 cars, and this is how I'd like to see you do it on an exam. If you're kind of sketchy on laying out the fabric, then this is what you need to kind of think about. We start there with trade. We produce at our specialization point 0 cars and 60 fruit. So that's our point B. Number 3, trade to get back to previous food level. So with this case, we're going to sell 40, right? So number 4, sell 40 fruit at a price of 4 computers per fruit, which is going to give me 160 computers. So I'm going to get 160. I'm going to give up 40. I'm going to get 160. You can see I wasn't too close here with my point D. Oh. Come on. There we go. So the gain from trade is 40. Right? I've got 160 now. I used to have 120. So we sell 40 fruit at 160 and we get 160 cars. So post trade, after trade, we have 160 cars and we're back to 20 fruit. Number 6, we have a gain of 160 minus 120 is 40 computers. What's your question, Adam?
I was on
Jakarta. What'd you get? 25. Did you guys get 25? What'd you get, Taylor?
150.
How much? 150. Okay.
Oh, we've done 2 different things. Because
You had different things too?
well, we had 150, but we also, because of
The answer should be 110.
yeah, if you were going off of the slope, it's line. Yeah, so it's supposed to be 4 or 1, you know.
Okay, that's the only thing to go off of. So that's the right answer, is to go off the terms of trade. So let's just work through it again. This point of specialization didn't change, right? 525, except now we're going to buy 50 fruit. What are we going to pay them with? Well, we only got cars, so we're going to buy 50 fruit at a world price of 4 cars per fruit. So we're going to pay with 200 cars. So 525 minus 200 is 325. And so there's your answer, 175, or 325 minus 175.
That's supposed to be, the gain we had from Ricardo was supposed to be 37.5, but we wrote it down as 27.5. That's wrong.
Ah, yes, that's true. Oh, you tried doing the shortcut method of just
Yeah.
tracking along here, which is totally fine. Yeah.
That's what I was doing when you walked by.
Okay.
Because isn't it just yeah, you just multiply it by the slope of the.
Yep. Yep. No, that was my bad. So I put 27.5 on the board, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's 37.5, right? 50
Yeah.
minus 87. I think I wrote 87.5 minus 50, but then I put 27. So make sure you edit that in your notes. So the gain from trade in terms of fruit was 37.5. The shortcut that they did was to just snake along here, which kind of raises a good point. If you screwed up that one, then you're screwed on, on the next one. Huh?
How'd you get to 305?
325.
325?
Yeah.
175.
So we're needing to buy 50 fruit. Max, we're needing to buy 50 fruit.
Yeah.
And so we're going to buy 50 fruit at 4 computers per fruit. We need to sell 200, which gives us the 325. So after trade, we have 325 minus 175, which is our 150. So the gain from trade in terms of computers is that. The point is we can go one good or the other. In reality, we probably have more of both. We probably have more of both. In fact, in a two-country model, what's true about imports and exports?
Supposed to be switched up.
Yeah, this isn't even possible to be at this point. If we've got them selling, let's go back to our point C. If they're selling 30, but these guys are gaining 37.5, that doesn't make sense, right? Imports don't equal exports. So the important takeaway is that in international trade, imports must equal exports in the real world. That's how the accounting is going to shake out. But it's often convenient to quote the gains from trade in terms of one good or the other, similar to what we do with money. Because now we can say who gained more. Was Jakarta better off, or was the United States better off in terms of the gain from trade? Now, who was better off with this situation? With the terms at 4, wherever it is. I guess I'll have it here. CPF at 4 computers per fruit. Who's better off, Jakarta or the United States in terms of the gain that they got? All right, so Jakarta had 37.5. The United States had 10. What was true about the populations that we assumed? Who was bigger? The United States. So on a per person basis, it's even worse, right? On a per person basis, relatively speaking, Jakarta's doing a little bit better. Do they deserve to have more?
Well, I mean, if you're going based off of rewards for productivity, yeah.
Okay, so they were more productive, right? They had the absolute advantage, didn't they? Jakarta had the absolute advantage. So that's possible.
Yeah, they kill those computers too.
Yeah. We gave them the absolute, we kind of stacked the deck.
150 and they gave us like 60.
So,
Whatever it was.
are they getting what they deserve?
No.
Is it fair? Is trade fair? These are questions economists love, right? Is it fair? Who determines what fair is?
Market.
The market. Okay, so you get what you get, and if everybody had an equal playing field and equal opportunity, then that's fair? Is that what you're saying? If everybody had an equal opportunity
I'm
and the
saying
market generated this
If the
thing,
rules are the same for everybody,
yeah,
then fucking you can't really beat with it.
okay. Does everybody agree with that?
I mean, I guess we need to see whether this one game being played, we kind of need to see the result of it played on a continuous spectrum before we really make any judgments one way or the other. Not to mention, we can't really make a judgment of fairness one way or the other with the limitations given by this model.
Okay. So is it fair to say that fairness is subjective? Yeah.
Isn't the U.S. going to run the numbers before we even trade with them anyways to determine if it's a good deal or not? Or are we just going to trade and then figure it out post?
Yeah, no, we would estimate that all ahead of time, and that would all be part of the negotiations.
In reality, they wouldn't go through if it was this lopsided.
Yeah. But when it's lopsided such that both parties are made better off, is it truly lopsided?
But do we want to make them that much better off? That's the question.
Well, if we're gonna do this with a complete real world example, if we're trading with things like Asia versus the United States on GDP per person, it's gonna actually make a significantly worse off country better and improve their overall global standing, so technically it would make things more fair.
Okay.
If you wanna play that subjective game.
Well, so this is a philosophical question that doesn't have a lot of easy answers, but I wanted to bring that up because it gets brought up all the time, right? Well, that's not fair. Well, what exactly is fair? Economists traditionally has stayed to the positive side. So on policy issues, the positive side is kind of the calculating, the cold mechanics of it. That's what we call positive analysis or positive economics. Normative is what ought to be or what should be, or that would be a good result to be, right? So what should be, what ought to be versus what is. And so economists traditionally have stayed here and said, hey, terms of trade, anywhere between 3 and 7, both parties are made better off. You guys figure it out what's fair. I'll let the politicians figure it out. Every individual can figure out what they think is fair. I'm staying out of it because I just like to stay in my comfortable number crunching mode here of what is happening and what the implications are, what the predictions are of what could happen or what the maximum amount of wealth that could be generated if the two engage in trade. Whatever, however we want to characterize it, there's things we can calculate, but then there's other things that in normative issues aren't as easy to tackle, and there can be differing opinions on it.
Does a game like this or like a trade like this affect like if there's another country that's trading with another, like a whole separate game that's going on while this one's going on? Are they gonna?
Well, in reality, yes.
Yes.
USA just gave this up, so that means you have to give up something pretty similar to what they gave up or something like
Yeah,
that.
again, this is just the economic model with its assumptions. We're gonna relax some things as we build onto this, but this is kind of our starter. So if you haven't quite picked it up, this is very similar to the rich versus the poor. So inequality, if the gap between the two is widening, is that fair? But as we go through time, let's just say the rich and the poor, the gap is here, right? Now, as we go through time, watch my left hand and my right hand. Are the poor better off? Yes. Is the gap bigger? Yes. So it's possible for the gap to widen, but yet be made better off. And that's kind of similar to what's going on here, is that everybody's made better off. And your perception of whether that's fair or not comes to a different set of values, or whatever your value system is, if you think that relative wealth is important or not. John?
I say, it kind of goes back to the argument of the increasing size of the pie versus the increasing portion of the pie.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah.
Again, the argument kind of goes out to you need more detailed things on either side to make a judgment on quote-unquote fairness or whatever.
Mm-hmm. As we start to, so here's kind of the econ thing that we can use some positive economics for again though. As we start to try to equalize things because we don't think the gap is fair, whether we're talking about countries or otherwise, then that starts to change the rules of the game, right? So the rewards to those people that are pursuing that cause possibly this upward trend, right? We're changing that game plan through possibly redistributing stuff later. And that could lead to this narrowing but falling, or increasing or going flat, narrowing, but maybe even going down. That's the fear, that as we change the parameters of the game, we might get something like that going on. So one of Milton Friedman's famous quotes was, a society that puts, let me see if I cannot screw this up. A society that puts freedom before equality. Wait, I'm about to screw this up. I think I want to say that backwards. No, that's right.
Yeah.
A society that puts freedom before equality will have generous amounts of both, but a society that puts equality before freedom will have neither of both, or risks having neither freedom or equality. So that was a little Milton Friedman. It's a good place to wrap up. I'll see you on Friday.
That's this.